I'm Dr. Scott Law, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Smile Doctors Off Mute podcast. Happy New Year to all of you, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Smile Doctors Off Mute podcast. It's hard to believe that we've been at this 9 months, but here we are. We've covered a lot of ground in that time, and I am thankful for you, our audience. It's been rewarding to see how engaged you are about these topics as much as we are. I'm excited because we are just getting started. We have a lot more to look forward to in 2025. But before we do, I'd love to take a look back in 2024 and see all the highlights that we have going on. Let's dive in really quick, but stay tuned because at the end we have a preview of what's coming in 25. It's been said that a rising tide raises all boats. And that's what we hope to do with this podcast, to make everyone better. I want to make it very clear that this is not a commercial for Smile Doctors. Again, we hope that people learn lessons. There's a lot of options out there. There's a lot of misnomers out there of what's going on, who are OSOs, what does the future hold? And again, we hope to answer many of those questions for people by coming off mute.
I am more excited today to be an orthodontist than I was 20 years ago because now I've got this palette of colors. I like to think of it that way. And every day it seems like we're adding another variation of color that we can paint with. So, from my perspective, that conversation starts in the consult room, and that, to me, that's our future. That's where we're going, is where we've got to be more prosthodontic in perspective of bringing all these technologies together, using all these colors to paint with. And I think that's our future as a specialty, because the moat around the moat that we used to have built about applying everything to one size fits all technology, that moat's evaporated now. Through the advent of clear aligners and essentially one lab fee per case, and then you get a fully distributable system that you can move teeth with. And there's multiple companies now that will do that for you. The moat's gone.
A lot of it is just keeping it simple. Just imagine, and Charlie Munger said this correctly, right? Just figure out what the bad stuff is and don't do that. I know AI is a big topic now, but back then it was human AI. And that's why being in a relatively large practice really helped us, because we kept running through the iteration and we keep running through it. And the hiccups will show up immediate, right? Because you're doing it so many times. But then that allowed us to enhance and improve our mechanics to make things even more efficient. We start minimizing number of wire sequences and without affecting treatment outcome.
I'll share with you Fong's classic statement: faster, better, cheaper.
Sure.
Anything we instituted in our office had to be faster, better, and cheaper.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
for sure. I think too often doctors get off on this tangent of like, hey, I'm going to use this one product that's available to every orthodontist in the country to differentiate my practice. And and I'm gonna use this and be first to market and get out there, and it's going to cost me a little bit more. I'll lose profit on the case. And as I see this out in the market, I'm like, oh boy, let's not go through this again.
It's really simple. I boil it down to, this is one of the last lectures I give my residents. It's only 4 things: start your appointments on time, finish your appointments on time, and finish your treatment on time excellently, and do it all with a smile. If you do that, you're going to be a successful orthodontist.
My number one focus when I'm in clinic is actually not my patients. And I know people are like, what did she just say? No, they're not my number one focus. My number one focus is my team. I will give anything for my team. I've got your back. I genuinely love you. If you're having a bad day, I want to know why. And we'll talk about the blurred lines between personal life and professional life, because I learned that the hard way. Not the hard way, but I learned that in a real life way. But they are my number one focus. How can I make your experience better? How can I make you feel empowered? How can I make you feel valued in this environment? Because that does then reflect onto my patients. I don't even have to worry about that.
Prairie View Orthodontics, which is our practice, it'd been around since 1970, I think it was 71, right? So we're talking 50 plus years of credibility within the community.
Yeah.
And then my dad had been there with Jackie Zimmer. And so, just as a little story, probably one of the hardest phone calls I had taken from this was calling him and just saying, "Hey, Dad," as a son to a father, I'd purchased the practice. He no longer had an ownership stake, but hey, I want to let you know what we're thinking of doing, what we're doing. That was a really hard phone call, right? To say, hey, you had built this amazing thing. We're going to take it in this direction. How do we honor that legacy of other patients and other dentists that had helped us grow and take it and go, okay, now we're just smile doctors. I mean, there was a lot of pain, some sleepless nights.
Sure.
About the legacy, how to honor that. So yeah, that was a pain point.
Yep.
But
no question.
Yeah.
I think I'm so glad that doctors don't have to make that phone call anymore, right? Yeah, we don't rebrand anymore. I think we kind of got to realize that was not an effective course of action. Yeah, we decided all that goodwill that had been built up, like in your practice, 50 years. We want to keep that.
Well, that influence of working for DSOs for a couple of years in private practice influenced me not to want to work for a DSO afterward and as an orthodontist. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't what I wanted. And so I was looking to buy a practice, but it just wasn't on the table with the timing. And so I met you. I was at a Ormco kind of meeting with my co-residents. I was about halfway through residency. And I remember you lecturing on efficiencies and office culture along with John Graham. It was in Atlanta, Georgia. I don't know. You probably remember you lectured so many times, but during that lecture, I leaned over to my co-residents and I said, I want to go visit that office. That sounds like exactly the type of environment I want to work in. And you're like, yeah, why don't you come out and visit? And so I did. And I had a great time. I remember coming, I was pretty nervous and sitting in your morning meeting and your team is treatment planning and diagnosing. And I remember leaning over to you and saying, they can treatment plan and diagnose better than me and my co-residents. And it was a very humbling moment for me. And then the whole day just was like, it just was this, like almost like a fairy tale. I was like, man, you really can see high volume, have quality, and have a great patient experience. And I leaned over to one of the clinicians at one point. Their name was Trish. And I was like, is this for real? Or are you guys just putting on a show for visitors? And she just laughed and she's like, no, this is our everyday. This is how it works. And I was, again, just kind of like, all right, I got to figure this out. And so during residency, I think that's I had 4 months left. And that's when you formed Smile Doctors and we had stayed in contact. And so I was looking at a few options. I had another kind of small DSO I could work for. I had an opportunity of a private practice. It's going to take a lot of work, or you'd give me an opportunity to consider joining Smile Doctors as an associate. And for me, it wasn't that hard of a decision because of you. And then I met Dana Vendor and I met Greg along the process. And it was Dana leaning over one day saying, well, it's all about the patient. We take care of people first, and then the teeth get straight. And that's not the focus. It's people.
I am incredibly uncomfortable not being uncomfortable. And the moment that I start to feel comfort in any way, or like maybe I'm not pushing myself, I become incredibly uncomfortable. And it makes me want to work even harder and more to do more and think outside of the box. And, as far as like me getting into the aesthetics world or whatever it is, it's not because I'm trying to abandon orthodontics and, do something totally different. Like, I don't want to be an aesthetic injector. I've learned that at this point. Like, I don't want to be, I'm thankful that I'm not. Oh gosh, that's a whole different conversation. But then being able to provide or encourage or help patients understand, like, there's other ways that aside from just jaw surgery or TADS and then intruding an entire upper arch for a gummy smile. Like, you could do Botox, you can do filler. And it's even though if you're not personally going to do it yourself, like understanding that there's different ways to do it. So the reason why I started pursuing that is because I wanted to challenge. I wanted to challenge our industry to basically learn more than just the mechanics of moving teeth. Like, we should know facial aesthetics, cosmetics, in my opinion, to be able to direct our patients on the way to go. Like, you don't need a genioplasty. You could do some filler in the chin. You can do filler in the jawline. It's all ways to enhance our results and just give, again, the patients the best experience possible. So again, that was uncomfortable for me to have to do that. It is uncomfortable for me to have to stand up in front of 1,300 orthodontists and orthopreneurs and speak on something that I'm like, I don't know this is going to resonate with anybody, but I'm going to do it anyway. And people probably think I'm crazy, but guess what? There's a lot of people that are doing it now, or there's people that are listening to it. So it's like, again, I like to push the envelope just to kind of see where we can go and just to make all of us better.
I remember that day when you came out and I got to meet with you. I got to meet with Jay. I got to meet with, Dana and Greg and really the leadership of Smile Doctors. And I'll be honest, I was talking to everybody. And back then it was, it was like the influx came in. I didn't even know how to deal with it because everything back in 2017, 2018, 2019 was exploding with DSOs and private equity. And so I said, I got to take a step back. And this was before Smile Doctors came into the picture and really gather my thoughts and come up with a plan. And I really couldn't say no at that point. And to be frank, yes, the money was good, but I was growing so rapidly that I wanted to do something like this. And so to answer your question, those that have their own solo practice and they're by themselves and they just want to keep doing what they're doing and not grow, I would say this is not what you should do. This is not the right thing for you. You should not affiliate with any DSO. If you want to continue to grow, and yeah, you can do that on your own. I did that for years. I went from 1 location to 4 before joining Smile Doctors. So yes, can you do it on your own? Yeah. Is it as fun? I can tell you no. This is the single best professional decision I made in my life. And no one has ever told me to say that. I've told you that for a long time. Are there bumps in the road? Of course. Would there be bumps in the road without affiliating? Of course. But I to answer your question, I would say, if you want to grow as a person, and if you want to grow professionally, affiliating with a DSO, and I really should say affiliating with the right DSO is a great option.
That's huge. I totally agree. What are some mindsets or, attitudes coming into that relationship that are going to make it fail? What do you see that just won't work? You mentioned the one about you want to remain solo and do your way and yours is the best way and no one can do it like you. What are some others?
Yeah. And it's not even, I want to remain solo as a practitioner. It's, are you going to listen to what could make you better and growth? And I'm not just talking about financial growth and production and collections. I'm talking about your staff growing. I'll give you a perfect example. I have over 10 employees of mine, team members of mine at NBO that are now somewhere else in Smile Doctors doing amazing things on a national level. Personal growth. I went from 4 locations and it was great. I loved what I was doing, but now I have an impact across 430 plus locations and growing. And to me, being able to implement not only what I've done, but what, practices from all over the country with the best Invisalign practices. We have 5 of the top 10 Invisalign practices in the entire country in Smile Doctors. The best of all of that is what we put together. It's not Zach Casagrande's Invisalign philosophies and preferences, and you got to do it this way. It's really the best of the best all in one. And then you have the ability to use this if you want. Not, Scott, while you're joining Smile Doctors, you have to use this. It's if you want to use this, you can use this. So, it's just growth in general, personally, professionally. And if you are happy with what you're doing and you're working Monday through Friday, Monday through Thursday, Monday through Wednesday, and you just want to keep it that way, then don't join a DSO. It's not for you. If you want to grow professionally, personally, do things outside of your own locations within your four walls, then this is something you want to look into.
That was one of the things I was most impressed with about you. You came in, given that you're number one in the world as far as Invisalign cases go per practice. You're number one. I think you still are number one in the world, in the universe, whatever. It was pretty humbling for me to see how you came in and you said, how are things run? How are things done? What can I learn? And it was a time where we were like, let's standardize this process of Invisalign preferences. How can we get it the same so that we can get our techs to prep this so that it's a whole lot less work, a lot less homework for our doctors on the digital flow side. And so we wanted to get that and get those best practices all together. And to your credit, Zach, I was just so impressed. You said, oh, okay. Oh, we're going to do attachments. Most people do attachments on the first visit. Great. I'll change. No problem. And you retooled your entire operation. You've been doing it this one way for years. It had worked. You had worked with your team, and you're that caliber of leader where you're able to go to your team and go, hey, for the greater good, we're going to do this. This is how it flows better. Let's find any way we can improve on this, and then we'll go and we'll share it. It was super humbling to me to see how you just wanted to work end goal that mattered the most, instead of, oh, how can I insert my ego and feel I got the best, I got all the solutions, I got the best thing going, just because you were the largest in the country. So I always have been impressed by that, and as you as a person and you as a leader. It's fantastic.
Well, I appreciate that. And I'll tell you, I thought what I was doing was the best. And then you look around and you see what other people are doing, what other great doctors are doing. And my goal is to make not only my practice better, but all of Smile Doctors better at this point. And it sounds cliche or cheesy to say this, but I truly think what we're doing with so many great minds in one place, that we're changing orthodontics in a very good way. So it doesn't just benefit Smile Doctors, it benefits everybody.
We did just under $8 million in production last year, and about $3.5 million of that production was from general dental referrals. And so I firmly believe that we can still work with dentists and they can help us be very, very successful.
So tell me a little bit about that. So you obviously know the number of referrals and the revenues coming in from those referrals. Tell me, how do you track that? How is that all a part of what you do?
Yeah, so we try and track it pretty close, just so we kind of understand where people are coming from. I think that's really important in our industry, to just understand why are we successful and where are people coming from. So we track it in the new patient phone call. If we don't have that from the new patient phone call, we track it in our TC room, and we just always try to understand where our patients are coming from. And that also helps us track trends, see where we're doing well. We do, one of the things I've always learned is you learn from others. I feel like I haven't really ever created anything new, but when I've seen what other people do, I just try and copy it and mimic it. But one thing I learned early on is that every pediatric dentist, regardless of how many patients that they refer, are always in our top referral group, because the odds of a pediatric dentist referring patients is so much higher than just usually your average general dentist. So we practice in an area with a high dental IQ with lots of pediatric dentists, and we try and do our best to take care of them. But I would just say that I think the main principle of everything that we've ever done is that real, genuine relationships matter the most. And that's one of the things I've tried to focus on. Just, if you never referred to me, it's okay, but I have a new friend. And I have dentists that live next door to me now because I've gotten to be friends with them. I have dentists that live down the street. I have ENTs that live in my neighborhood just because we've become friends. We've talked. I've invited, I say, come be my neighbor.
That's great. What have you done in order to foster those relationships?
Well, I don't think I do anything special, to be honest. Friendships are friendships, but I'll tell you just a couple things. When I started out and bought the practice and took out a $1.4 million loan, and it was terrifying. I saw that very first Christmas, all the gifts that were being given to all these dentists in the area. And we had student loans. I had 4 kids. We were barely making it. And I thought, what can we do? And I involved my wife. My wife is wonderful. She can make homemade jam. And I thought, I can't keep up with the Joneses of the orthodontic competing practices, but I can be real and genuine. And I remember that first Christmas, we made jam and took it by to each of those offices, shook their hand, looked them in the eye, and said, thanks for being a friend, and Merry Christmas, and just wish them the best. And that tradition has actually continued now for almost 15 years. And, at least one time in the year, I make it a point to be in their office, to just say thank you, look them in the eyes, give them a hug, wish them well. And so that's one thing. I firmly believe in an Apple Watch, in phone technology. Today, texting throughout the day with lots of dentists. I've got one who's pregnant. There's actually a practice in our area. 3 of the female dentists are pregnant, which is super exciting, and figuring out gifts and other things for them. But one of the game changers in my practice life was I was at a Damon forum, and somebody said this line: every month, every employee in every office gets a gift from us, and it can't be food. And I thought, I'm not very smart, but that's something that I can do. And we came back, and this was 2017. And I talked with Gina, who is my marketing director. And I said, I want to do this every month. We're going to do something. And the next month that we were ready to go was April. And so we got umbrellas, really cool umbrellas. And we did 450 umbrellas to every employee in every office. And we waited until it was raining, and then we delivered it. So there's some intentionality, there's some strategy as we work with these offices. We have a method to the madness sometimes. And so for the umbrellas, wait for a rainy day. And that's just something that we did. And then they were so excited, and it kind of exponentially made the gift even better. And so that was one thing. Every Christmas, we give a shirt to every office, and we spend time on designing something that's really cool. And we put their name on the front of it so they can wear it all the time. And we put our practice name on the back, and they love it. I fully recognize that, everybody has different talents and different abilities. And so it may not be the thing that comes. But I look at $3.5 million of dental referrals last year and go, I can do a lot of things for $3.5 million in production. I can kind of go a little bit out of my comfort zone. I can try a few new things. I can copy what other people are doing. But it doesn't come down to doing a lot of things. One of the things that I always say is everything that we do in our practice should cause our employees, our patients, and everybody that comes in to want to refer all their friends, neighbors, and family members to us. And so if we're doing something, or you're doing something that doesn't cause that, we should change. And that's been very good. And so, that happens all the time in practice. Something will happen, and I go, this appliance is really great, but it took me an hour of drilling it out. And I don't think that's going to cause them to refer their friends, neighbors, and family members to come see us. Simplify. And that's, I would just say to those that struggle with it, you just begin somewhere, you just start, you'll find things, and you'll have some successes along the way. And, the first year I look back and I thought, I don't know how we're doing. And 15 years later, I go, wow, you know what? Things have worked out well. And so just keep at it, be persistent, be intentional, have a strategy. It becomes fun, and it can work out well.
So back to the de novos. So you mentioned that you like driving around, looking at opportunities, seeing that. What's your approach to that? Aside from driving around, what are you looking for when you're going to do a de novo?
Well, it's gotten a lot more strategic now doing it with Smile Doctors, to be honest. But a lot of it was, just sort of gut feeling. The research I did on my own was not super great relative to how I know that it can be done now. But there were certain areas, and I could see where we're already pulling patients from. Maybe we're getting some patients from that area. We could go to that area, find out if there's any good spots, talk to the dentist in that area, see if they're willing to support us. See what's going on in the community, check out other businesses, schools, stuff like that. So, for us, when we were opening, we were just kind of kept pushing it. Like, I'll call it a 30-minute drive. That's a really rough number, but we kind of keep pushing further and further. And, now our furthest de novo is about, the one we just opened is about 2.5 hours from our main location. So we've gotten pretty far, and potentially going further, just depending on how we want to do it.
That's great. What are some of those challenges that you've had to overcome as you get further out? Is it buildings, permits, what team members, staffing it, all of that? How have you overcome some of those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, all of it, right? Buildings, permits, team members, travel, contractors, architects, lease, real estate. Yeah, I used to do a lot of it myself. I've made a lot of really costly mistakes. I mean, I could give you an example, but I've made it.
That's great. Let's hear it.
Sure. Okay, sure. So one real quick example is, I'm like doing the lease, and sure, I'd have like a lawyer review it and whatever, but like, maybe I think some of them I didn't even have a lawyer review to show you how smart I am. But I didn't know there was something called a signing a lease, where like you had to, if you wanted to, let's say you wanted to sell to, or you wanted to eventually sign that lease to somebody, or you're joining a partnership, you're joining Smile Doctors, and they're going to take over the lease. And well, if you don't have that in their contract, guess what? They can ask for whatever they want to get that lease assigned. So I think that was like a $25,000 quick lesson that's a sentence you should have in your lease, right? I mean, that's one example. I can promise you I made bigger mistakes than that. So another issue I've had, and I've actually had this happen twice, is I've had to fire a contractor midway through construction. That is not only costly, it's just painful, and it takes a lot of time. So fortunately now, we have somebody, Shane Lynch, who is a professional at that. He's the one who's dealing with the contractor, making sure everything goes according to an actual timeline, not just like begging the contractor, hey, can you please be done by this time? Which is what I used to do. So. Got
it. I absolutely, doing multiple de novos myself, I completely understand the frustration.
Yeah, well, thank God for Amanda Floyd and Brittany Sabota and April Meller and all these great people I have on my team at Fishbein Orthodontics, who really kept laser focused, not just on the de novo, but on everything else we had going on. It is sometimes easy to lose focus when you're opening a new office. You're so focused on that, and you can't just let the other one fail. You have to keep growing that too. So fortunately we've had really good marketing people, Eliza Ray, Hannah Yui, Sarah Javier, Chelsea, and we've been able to sort of split up their duties, where some of them will be focused on, or one of them will be focused on a new de novo, where the other ones are focused on different offices. So we've been able to sort of, we got to a size where we were big enough where we could, sort of divide and conquer.
How many doctors have you had through Fishbein Fundamentals?
Yeah, that's been super. We've met a lot of people. We've had Smile Doctors sponsor it. They sponsored it last time. So I think that's great interaction for the attendees to get to see, like, hey, these Smile Doctors or whatever, these OSOs aren't big and scary. They're just a normal, they're normal people, normal practice, hopefully really good practice. And a lot of the attendees who have joined Fishbein Fundamentals, or who have attended Fishbein Fundamentals, first of all, they'll grow a lot, and then they end up partnering with Smile Doctors because they get too big. So I always let people know that, like, look, you're gonna get really big, and then you're gonna partner with Smile Doctors or whatever else. So that we see that a lot.
So when you guys joined, you knew a little bit about what practice might be like, what it was like in an OSO. We prepped you as best we could, but there was still a lot that that you didn't realize, a lot that you didn't know. Give us some examples of some things people should ask when they're considering to join with an OSO. What do they need to know?
I would say the first thing, and this is what I say to doctors when I talk with them, is it's kind of like when we would have a consultant, and we didn't have a consultant then if we weren't willing to change and to take the things that they were saying and improve, right? Why are we going to pay somebody to come in and try to help us and then say, no, we're not going to do any of it? Same thing with Smile Doctors. We have an amazing group of partners who just have so much to offer. So coming in with the mindset of, I am going to learn from others. And if I see things that can be improved, I'm going to voice that so that we can all grow as an organization. If people come in with that mindset, they will love it because there's just so much collaboration and learning opportunity here. So that's number one, I would say.
Yeah, it is a culture of collaboration, but it comes from all practices. And I think it's interesting when, we had, Ben and Amanda come out for Fishbein Orthodontics a few years ago. And look, I mean, there's a lot that we can learn from Ben and Amanda, and we have over the years implemented a lot. But I was amazed seeing them, who I look at as everything figured out, taking notes of things that we're doing. And then I look at a guy like Zach Casagrande, who does more Invisalign than anyone in the country, being part of in the world, being part of this organization for like 3 months, and Tanya having a conversation with him about what happens at visit 1 and when to do IPR and some of the staging. And he sat there and said, that's a great idea. We're going to go do that. And so it's whatever level you're at, there's a humbleness to want to learn and improve that I think if there's that mindset, it fits real well into our world. The other thing that I think Smile Doctors is not a great fit for is for someone that's looking at this as like an exit strategy. I really thought that once we affiliated with Smile Doctors, my biggest concern is that I was going to lose the passion for not only our local level, but for the company. And I was going to have all these outside interests and maybe not be as engaged. I was worried about what would happen, to the practice if I wasn't as interested in its success as I was before. And I think what we've seen is that I think our average age last year was 42 years old for the average affiliate that joined. These are practices that are not looking at this as an exit strategy. These are people that are looking at this as a long-term option for them. And I think we've seen a lot of success with people past their 5 years. And Tanya and I are one that we're really not looking at another opportunity to go do something else. Like this is something that's a partnership, that's a long-term type thing. And so these doctors are still engaged in their practice. Maybe they're a little bit more present outside their practice. I know Tanya and I are, with not having to wear every hat. When a Pansef machine goes down on a Friday, I'm maybe not worried about it as much as I was on a Sunday before. But these are guys that are continuing to be vested in their local level and also with the success of the whole group. So I think that doctor engagement has been something maybe I wasn't anticipating or my level of passion about what we're doing day in and day out.
Yeah. And Scott, I've got to say, you're a perfect example of that too. Like Ryan said before, when we visited your office, we came back with a notepad full of things that we're going to implement the next day with our team. And you come out to our office and you're taking notes. And it's just, I don't know, a pretty awesome community we have.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, I think the outlook is for Smile Doctors as a whole. And then, essentially, as a part of that, my future as well is super, super bright. I mean, we've just continued to grow and have such great growth. Even since I joined the practice 3 years ago, the amount of growth we've had and the number of new amazing doctors that have come to be a part of Smile Doctors is incredible. I lecture for residents. There's a course that I've done usually once or twice a year, pretty much since I graduated. And there's a slide on Smile Doctors on there. And every single time I lecture, I have to keep updating it with how many practices we have and how many states we're in. And it's just kind of crazy to look back at my original PowerPoint just from, 3 years ago, and how many more doctors have been added. So I think the growth we've had and, especially because the doctors we've been bringing on are all incredible doctors, it's, our future is super, super bright. And personally, in terms of Smile Doctors, I don't know exactly where I want to go within Smile Doctors. I'm super happy in the role I'm at right now, but Like I kind of said in the beginning, I'm always someone who really wants to grow and learn new things and do new things and try new things. So, as the practice continues to grow, I know there's a lot of different opportunities within Smile Doctors to get more involved in like the business side, potentially start a de novo, continue speaking. So lots of different avenues and opportunities that I could go down, but I don't know exactly what the future holds. I just know it's going to be good.
I hope you enjoyed that look back, and I invite you to keep tuning in. In the year ahead, we have Dr. Dan Bills, and he's going to talk to us a lot about co-treating patients with a dental partner. Doctors Damon Diarmid and Dan Lill talking to us about practice efficiencies. And Dr. Jackie Sheik, who's going to talk to us about living the rock star life and practicing with intention. We have so many more, including many guests who are going to be outside of the Smile Doctors organization. For now, thank you for being the best part of this podcast. And let's make 2025 great together. Oh, man, that was a struggle. All right, there we go.